What is the most what the frick thing you've seen at a wedding? I was asked to be the best man for my then girlfriend's brother at 10 a.m. the morning of the wedding. I was trying to come up with a toast, but I couldn't think of a thing. The bride was about as bright as a box of hammers. The groom was an unemployed, drug addicted deadbeat and was living off the 18-year-old stripper he was marrying. At the moment of the toast, I spoke a little about their finer qualities and wished them both all the happiness they deserved. Well, someone found her blowing one of his cousins in a side bedroom. He proceeded to destroy all of the wedding gifts while screaming about how she had given him genital warts, and then stole her father's car and totaled it 2 blocks away by running it into a tree. I truly cannot describe how awful this was. The worst thing I saw at a wedding was when the best man gave his speech. This best man was a little too drunk. You know when some people get drunk, they start to spill the beans? Well, he did. You could tell what was going to happen, too. I sat there thinking he was going to say how the groom slept with a hooker at his bachelor party or something shocking along those lines. But what he said was way worse. The best man staggers up the stage, saying how beautiful the bride looks. He then said she'd have trouble with the groom in bed because he has a micro penis. He starts yelling, "Micro penis! Micro penis!" while being dragged off by the other groomsmen. The groom slumped his head into his hands out of utter embarrassment and had actual tears. His wife got up, sobbed, and ran out. This couple had both been saving themselves for this marriage, too. I felt horrible for both of them. Almost 10 years later, they are still married, have 2 awesome kids, and are very happy together. Still, it's the most awkward thing I've ever seen at a wedding. This guy in our town was a real smart dresser. He was a teacher and an overall nice guy. He'd been going with his girlfriend for 3 years, and there were rumors they had never done it. Anyway, in the middle of the wedding, instead of saying, "I do," he says, "I'm gay." She runs out and he chases after her. After a few minutes, she starts yelling about how many times she had to watch Funny Girl or something like that. He says something and she screams, "I hate Barbara Streisand," and runs out of the church. I went to the wedding of a young couple. They were both about 19 or 20 years old. The father of the bride was very obviously pitching a tent during the dance with his daughter. I've never been more disturbed and felt so sad for that young lady. I hope her new husband saved her from that man. My cousin had her wedding on a farm, and they had a massive pig roast. Everyone in their very small town was invited. Her father and my other older cousin never really got along. At one point during the reception, my older cousin finally had enough and absolutely lost it. He looked at a handful of us and asked if we had his back. Of course, we all nodded, not really knowing what was about to happen. He disappeared, and a few minutes later, he comes back with a 20-pound bag of pork meat from the leftover roast. He walks down to where my cousin's dad is and smacks him right in the side of the face with the bag of meat. An all-out family brawl ensued. The whole family hasn't been invited to a wedding ever since. I went to a wedding last year that was a literal bloodbath. They had it in a barn. The barn door was open through most of the pre-reception setup and into the ceremony itself. At the end of the ceremony, they released a dozen doves. They didn't realize that if you're going to release doves, don't release them any place near open ceiling fans. Half of them flew back in, hit the metal fans, and exploded. Blood was everywhere. The bride was sobbing, and the groom was pissed at the dove guy. It was chaos. My wife and I kind of just left. There was no saving that. Back in my youth, I was a wedding photographer, so sit down and let me regale you with the worst wedding I ever shot. The groom was a childhood friend of mine. Our parents knew each other and liked each other, but he was a bit of a douchebag, so we eventually lost touch. My mom was the caller, and she asked me to be in his wedding party. I told her the obvious, that I didn't like the guy back then. We hadn't even spoken in 15 years, and I really don't want to be in his wedding party. My mom told me that he hadn't had any friends over the years, so this would be a personal favor to her and to his mom. As part of the favor, I would do the photography as a wedding gift. Reluctantly, I agreed. I go over to meet everyone, and within seconds, I realize why I'm being asked for the favor. The groom hasn't brushed his teeth in years, and they are one solid mass. His bride is massively overweight and overbearing beyond belief. I suck it up and do my best. The wedding happens, and after the ceremony, which was actually nice, The bride decides literally out of the blue that she wants to have a white limo take her to the Hilton. It's June. There are no limos available, and the Hilton is fully booked. But the best man, the groom's older brother, is furiously trying to find something and pay for it on his credit card because the bride is now in full meltdown mode. In a fury, she rips her headpiece out, taking about a third of her hair with it, and storms into the back room of the hall. The groom says he's going to try and talk her down and goes back there with her. A few minutes later, the double doors of the back room slam open and he comes running out with a butcher knife through his palm. He's streaming blood and screaming. She tackles him from behind, yanks the knife out of his hand, and looks like she's going to stab him to death in front of the entire assembly. The best man and I both tackle her at once. We're both grown men, but she's a total hellcat. The groom slips out, gets out of the hall, and runs to his car, but she also squirms free after biting the best man and is maybe 30 seconds behind the groom. As he puts the car into drive, she leaps on the hood and grabs the wipers. He guns it, and as he bottoms out on the exit of the parking lot and yanks the wheel, she rolls off into the street and drills the far curb. As we run up to her, she has scratches everywhere and is bawling. Turns out, she'd been psychotic several times during her adolescence and adulthood and was on a bevy of pills every day. She decided on her own not to take her meds on her wedding day because she wanted to be totally clear for the ceremony. The wedding got annulled the next day. In my conservative religious country, the wedding is all good and nice until everyone gathers around a room where the bride and groom consummate their marriage. Then, the mother of the groom goes in and brings out a white cloth with the bride's virgin blood and passes it around while singing and shouting in happiness. If the bride isn't a virgin, it would have been the blood of her face. I was traumatized seeing that as a kid while everyone was acting normal about it. I literally have childhood trauma from it. My grandfather was a pastor, so he officiated many weddings. At one wedding, the groom locked his knees at the altar and was standing for so long that he passed out. He fell backwards and hit his head on the stairs behind him and died. To add to this, my grandfather always had the couple sign their marriage license before the wedding because couples were often very tired by the time the celebration was over and just wanted to get out of there. So, legally, the couple was already married when this happened. After the incident, he had to ask the bride if she wanted him to mail in the marriage certificate or not. She basically had to decide whether or not she wanted to be a widow. I used to work in high-end catering for large hotels. Like, if Oprah was in town and wanted to throw a fundraiser, the hotel would contact our company to staff the event. Anyway, I was working a really nice wedding, where it was clear that the bride's family paid for everything. Not to sound classist, but the groom was marrying into money. All his groomsmen were nice enough, but you could tell they were from Section 8 housing. Overweight, missing teeth, scars, you know the type. I know. Don't judge from appearances, but you'll understand later. The ceremony goes fine. The reception starts well enough, but goes off the rails very quickly. Apparently, the groomsmen snuck in a case of cheap liquor, even though it was an open bar, and very quickly got completely plastered. About an hour into the reception, a fight breaks out. Glasses start getting thrown, plates are shattered, and tables get flipped. The event staff got pulled from the room while security was called. Between the time I left the room and security got there, one of the groomsmen had broken a beer bottle and used it to stab another groomsman in the neck. Unfortunately, he didn't survive. We weren't allowed to clean up the event venue for 3 days while police investigated. The father of the bride gave a 10-minute-long speech where he said if she wasn't his daughter, he'd marry her, while his wife stood right next to him. I DJ'd a rich family wedding. 400 people on their massive property under a huge tent. The rich daughter married an indigenous Canadian gent. They looked like an adorable couple. It was easily 45 degrees Celsius with the humidity that day. I almost got heat stroke while setting up. Boss told me to finish, or I was fired. The bride's dad was a total condescending dick to the staff and me the whole day. Overall, there was an obvious tension the entire night. At about 1 a.m., someone on one family side said something to someone else, and a massive brawl started. Apparently, one of the bride's uncles told the groom's brother something along the lines of, "Why don't you go back to the res to huff a liter?" Just incredibly racist shit. I'd have thrown down, too, if I were him. This wasn't teens fighting, but 50-year-old white bankers throwing down with farm working and reservation living people. It was wild. Did I cut the music? Hell no! I was fed up and saw an opportunity, so I threw on kung fu fighting and watched this brawl go down. The banker boys got their asses beat. About 7 to 10 cop cars arrived, and there were multiple arrests. I didn't get paid, and at that point, I didn't care. It was worth it. If you enjoy this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you. During the reception, the maid of honor told the bride that she was pregnant with the groom's child. This leads to the next wedding, where the groom is now marrying the former maid of honor, and the ex-wife tells her that she is also pregnant with, you guessed it, the groom's child. At the ceremony, during the speak now or forever hold your peace part, a guy stood up and said he had slept with the bride a few months prior. Then another guy got up and said the same. 2 more guys stood up after that. Turns out, the bride had been making the rounds through the groom's family. None of them were going to say anything, but when one guy cracked, it was enough for the guilt to overflow on the rest, including the best man, who was bright red in the face when he stammered out that he had fooled around with the bride too, just 2 weeks prior. The wedding was canceled. Many years ago, I worked for a catering company. It was a position I held for about 10 years. There were many things that happened during that time at wedding receptions that were beyond the norm. Once I accidentally walked in on the groom banging one of the bridesmaids in the ladies' room. They didn't even bother to shut the stall door. There was the reception where one of the groomsmen had a tiny video camera mounted on the top of his shoe, and he was sticking it under the dresses of any woman he could get close to. He was escorted out by the police. Then there was the wedding where the grandfathers of the bride and groom apparently hated each other. They were both in their mid to late 80s. Everyone tried to keep them separated through the evening. At some point, though, they ended up at the bar at the same time, and it turned into a slow-motion fight club. They were throwing the slowest, lightest punches, but still ended up on the ground wrestling around until they were dragged apart. Lastly, there was a huge wedding between the grandchildren of a mafia boss from Chicago and one from New York. We had never seen so many people, aside from law enforcement, discreetly packing in one place. The older boss guys said very little, even to each other, but every little hand gesture meant something. Their security knew exactly what a finger raise or snap meant immediately. The room was split, with each family staying away from the other family. They didn't speak or mingle until both grandfathers gave a little hand gesture. After that, it was like one big family party. Just as the bride started walking down the aisle, her grandmother had a sudden heart attack. We had to stop the procession and start CPR in the aisle. What's worse is that we were in a large park, and people calling 911 couldn't give the address. I ran to the ranger station, but it was locked. I broke a window screen and crawled through to use the landline that EMS could trace and respond. Unfortunately, Grandma didn't make it. As an added bonus to the horrible situation, we later found out that the ranger had placed a hidden camera in the women's restroom where the bridesmaids got dressed for the wedding. He served jail time. It was a wedding and reception by a lake, and everyone knew the venue, so we dressed accordingly. Shirts and comfortable trousers, sundresses and sandals, etc. The bride's sister-in-law is dressed like she's heading out for an evening of dinner and dancing. Sky-high heels, tight dress, rhinestones everywhere. She looks gorgeous, but it's not comfortable and she's pissed. Right after the ceremony, we walk over to the gazebo area where the reception will be, and the sister-in-law starts throwing her high heels at her husband, screeching about what an awful day it is. She gashes her husband's eyebrow open. While people are scrambling to get him napkins and try to get him into a car to drive him to the hospital for stitches, she decides to up the ante. She says, "I can't take this anymore," and throws herself off the dock in a dramatic swan dive. The problem is, the lake at that point was only 4 feet deep and marshy, so she just sort of bobs along in the water. Sister-in-law's father just turns towards the lake and tells her to cut the crap and get out of there. They piled into 2 cars and drove off. It was surreal. The mother-son dance went on for like 7 minutes and had 3 songs woven together. The mother had changed into a backless ballroom gown for this number, and spent much of those 7 minutes shimmying up and down her newly married son. I guess this got her excited enough to bang one of the waiters out in her car in the parking lot while the hors d'oeuvres were being passed out. At the reception, the older, unmarried sister of the bride has to dance in a hog feeding trough by themselves in front of everyone because their younger sibling got married before them. All their family, friends, and guests gathered around them to laugh and heckle. We couldn't help but feel bad for them, especially the poor big sister who was a little on the heavier side. Sorry about your self-esteem, I guess. I've been working in hotels for almost 20 years. I've seen a lot of weddings. One of the craziest was a redneck wedding. They had an open bar, so problems happened. One family insulted another. It wasn't even an insult, really. It was over a football game. Little guy was talking a lot of smack, and this big guy just grabs a bottle of beer and whacks the little guy in the head hard. He goes down. It happened so fast. Big guy realizes he screwed up and runs with his girl. About 30 minutes go by, and the cops finally came. Paramedics said the little guy was pretty much dead instantly. Later that night, while we were cleaning up, a detective comes by and rips out the carpet. They eventually catch the guy a few states over. I had to ID him. Again, this was just one of the crazier weddings. The divorced father of the groom started talking about how much better his new wife was compared to his old wife, the groom's mother, during his speech. He spoke at length about the qualities of Asian women versus white women. I've never looked at my shoes so hard in my entire life. A male relative of mine got married. His mother died a couple of weeks before the ceremony. His widowed father showed up to the wedding with his new girlfriend, who was wearing the dead mother's clothes. I mean, the dress she picked out for the wedding, her shoes, and jewelry. Our whole family was shocked. They spent the whole day telling everyone that it would have been a shame to not use it, since it was such a happy coincidence that his late wife and new girlfriend shared the same size. Needless to say, the groom loves his wife, but doesn't like to talk about the wedding. The couple was conservative, evangelical Christians. The bride had always been a Christian, but the groom had converted sometime in his late 20s. As such, the bride was a virgin, but the groom was not. Not really a big deal, except every single one of his groomsmen brought it up during their speeches. Like, they felt the need to let everyone know that the groom had gotten laid before and now got to bang a virgin. It was truly gross. I attended a wedding where they hired private security to ensure the bride's father and stepmother wouldn't come in and disrupt everything. After security blocked them from going in, they decided to get drunk in the car. Then, they came back and proceeded to beat the security guards up with their empty liquor bottles. Before the wedding started, I overheard the groom's family calling the bride paranoid and selfish and that she should have invited her dad. Obviously, they had never met him before. This happened to my then girlfriend, now my wife. It was our friend's wedding about 25 years ago. We were young and loved to party. The bride and groom left the reception early to head out for the honeymoon. A group of us took mushrooms and were drinking hard. One of our friends was a huge wrestling fan, and he was dancing with my girlfriend. Out of absolutely nowhere, he grabs my girl, picks her up, and suplexed her on the dance floor. Her head hit the floor, and she was just lying there in her little black dress with her eyes fluttering. I put both my hands around his neck and tried with every ounce of strength I had to choke the life out of him. Our friends calmed us down, and he was escorted home. It was the most insane thing I've seen at a wedding. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more Reddit stories. See you in the next video.